And welcome back to part 2 of this masterclass on playwriting. And as we discussed in part 1, we worked a lot on starting points and building scenes, adding scenes to each other, and looking for storylines, and so on and so forth. Today, in this part 2, we are going to first look at characters. Now, whether you have written your idea in a story format, or whether you've written your idea in a scene format, or in multiple scenes like a script, you still have characters. The characters could be human, they could be animal, they could be objects, they could be something intangible. Sometimes you have, a feeling is a character, or time is a character. So you could even have something like that. So whatever the character you have, whether it's animate, inanimate, or it is abstract, what we do need to do is do a character sketch. A character sketch is, well, you can actually sketch the character, you can draw the character as a reference for yourself, so you know what the character looks like. But a character sketch for a playwright is more about capturing all the different facets of this character's personality, information about the character. And this we arrive at this through a character study. So the first thing that you should do is make a list of all the characters that are already in your story or in your script. And then, of course, once you've got the list of characters, you can think of maybe adding some characters as you continue writing. Once you have the list of characters, you would need to start detailing out information about each character. These are all notes for the writer to be able to give a particular voice to a character in the play. What kind of person is this character? Are they young? Are they old? Are they irritable? Are they always laughing? Do they have a soft voice? Do they have a gruff voice? So there are many things that you would need to describe, so that when an artist or when an actor takes your script to perform it, they have as much information from you as the writer about each character or the character that they are going to play or portray in an audio play. It will help the actor to prepare for their role and to also deliver your character in the way you as the writer have visualized or thought of this character. So at times a character study may seem tedious, but believe me, it is very helpful when you are writing a play, because there's a lot of clarity you need as a writer, even though all the details are not included in the script, but they are there in your thoughts and the way you write the scenes. It is like in the background. So let's look at an example of a list of characters that has been included in a play written by some of my students earlier this year. So this is a character list. It's just as an example. There was a short detective play written by some students, and they have this list of characters. So they have mentioned the gender, they have mentioned the physical characteristics of height, or sometimes they also put weight, what they look like. Do they have a mustache, or are they tall? If they have a particular way of walking, would be needed for a play which is being performed on stage. But for an audio play, you would probably also describe what kind of voice the person has. Maybe you can include things like tall, short, mustache, just for the actor to get into the role. I know it's not going to be visible in an audio play, but the actor has to visualize the character he or she is playing, so it will help them. And also you can describe the sound. So now, how have these writers who've written this character list, how have they arrived at this? Let's look at the next slide, which is a very basic format of a character study. There are many different ways of doing a character study. You can find these on the internet. I am just sharing you one approach or one format of writing a character study. So the first thing we have is the name. Sometimes we don't choose a particular name. We would just call them person one, person two, or girl, boy, man, old man. It could be generic, or the character could have a particular name. So the first part is the name. The second part is the physiology, which is what the person looks like, what the character looks like, or just the physical features. So you have the gender, age, height and weight, color of hair, skin, eyes, etc. Here, I would suggest to also add voice quality to this list for your purpose of writing the audio play. Then we have the second part, which is the sociology, where we get to know a little bit more about the character in relation to its family or its surroundings or the outside world, or to society at large. And the third part is the psychology, which is more the internal characteristics of the person. What is their temperament like? Do they have some special abilities? What are their likes and dislikes? So, this is more the internal characteristics of the person. Now, when you are writing a character study, it is not necessary that you have to write information on every point in these three sections. You can choose to maybe just include 2 or 3 points at a time, or maybe just one or two, depending on your priorities. What you feel is necessary and what you feel is not necessary, you can leave out. Um, that all depends on your story, what, how important your character is, how much detail you feel would be required to better convey about the character to your readers or to the actors who are going to perform the story or the script that you are writing. So this is just an indication, and you can also look at other resources on how to do a character study. And you can definitely make drawings of the characters. I always enjoy making drawings of characters that I write into my stories, because it's fun to see how they're going to look and what they're going to wear. And then, of course, that can be shared with other people in the team if you wish to. So these are some of the things for the character study, but in any script, whether it is being performed as an audio play, whether it is being performed as a stage play, or an online play, or even if it's being performed for a camera, um, we do need to have the list of characters, and we do need to have a little description about each character. So definitely include this before your first scene begins. So in your entire script, you would have the title, you would have the name of the writer, and then you would have the character list, and then you would have the main script, which is scene one, scene two, as you have, as you will write. Moving on from the characters, we have our characters in place, we have our scenes. Some of you may have written more scenes, some of you may have written an entire story uh, by this point, or you may have only 1 or 2 scenes and not the rest of it. It's just an idea in your mind. So now, how do we look at the whole picture, the entire play, right in front of your eyes as a whole? So one of the things that as a writer you can do is work on what is called the scene breakdown. If you have written it in story format, then what I would suggest is to divide your story into different parts. Usually a story can be divided easily into 5 or 7 parts, and that helps in also creating the scenes. So you could do it that way. Or if you have written scenes, then you would obviously have scene one, scene two, scene three, or you may have written 3 scenes like we did in part one today, where you don't know whether it's the whole story, you need to add a few more scenes. So let me look at this. Yeah. So if you don't have all the scenes, but you know what is happening in each scene that you have already written, I would suggest that you write a short description for the scene that you've written and start putting that down. Scene one, and then you describe the scene in a brief line or 2 lines. Scene two, again, a brief description in 1 line or 2 lines. And in that manner, you put scene one, scene two, scene three, scene four. If you have more than that, then scene five, scene six. But as we spoke about earlier, in a 10-minute play, you would probably not have that many scenes. You might have 1, 2, 3, or 4 scenes, I would say, at the most. So when we are talking about putting your idea into scenes, you may be confused about how do I divide the story into parts. So look at what is happening in your story or in your script. How do I move from one scene to the next? So if the characters, there's something happening, and then there is a change of time. So something has happened between character A and B, they're in the house, and then it's morning, and then the next part is in the evening. So if the time of the scene changes, or the time of the scene happening changes, then the scene would change. If one part of the story is today or on one particular day, and the next part of the story is on another day, or it is a few days ahead, or a few weeks ahead, or it is many years later, so if there's another time change in that sense, you would also then need to change the scene. Another reason for changing the scene or dividing the story into different scenes is when the setting changes. Like we discussed earlier, every scene has a setting, the place where that action is happening. So if one scene is happening on the street, and the next scene, next action is happening inside a shop. So the characters are moving from the street into the shop. You may want to change the scene because now it is gone from the exterior to the interior space. So your scene will change. But if you're thinking of the shop and the street as part of the two parts of the stage, then it would be seen as one scene. But if the character has gone from the shop to the on the street and then walked home and then enters their house, so then what happens in their house would be another scene. So change of setting or change of place would again be a change of scene. Now sometimes what happens is that in a play we want to do a flashback, or we want to do a flash forward. So the character is thinking about something that happened, or the writer wants to show something that happened many days ago, or happened a year ago, or when the character was a young person. So then in a flashback or a flash forward, the scene would change. Similarly, a character may have a dream, or they may have a hallucination, or they may be imagining something or thinking about something, and that may play out as a different scene. So we should be very clear when we make a scene change. The reason for the scene change should be very clear. Try not to mix up more than one place or one location in one scene. Otherwise, it becomes very confusing. If you were probably doing it as a film, where in a film the camera would move, you may have a character thinks about the seaside, and then you would have the character walking on the beach, and then again comes back to sitting at his or her desk. You may have it like that, but on in a theatrical format, in a play format, we wouldn't be doing it like that. So we stick to one location for one scene, and we don't mix up two locations in the same scene. We have a scene change when there's a change of place or setting where the action is taking place. If there is a change of time, and or change of day or week or month or year or years. If any of this change is happening in the story, then the scene would change. If we have a flashback or a flash forward, then the scene would change. And if a character is seeing a dream or is hallucinating or is imagining something, and you want to show what's inside their mind, you want to show that in the play, then that would be another scene. There may be more ways or more reasons for scenes to change, and that is something that you can discover as you move ahead with your writing. So, looking at this scene change, I don't want you to be confused. Um, you may have your story all in one place. Okay, suppose your entire story is in a garden or in a park. The whole story is playing out. The whole place in a park. So then there's no place change. There's no setting change. Um, you may have different parts of the park in different scenes, or you may have the same place in the entire 10-minute play. Then you would need to look at dividing the script into parts depending on the time. If it's the same day or the same, or if it's the evening or morning, is it sunset or sunrise, or what is the time, or is it during noon? Those